dangerous. Oh my god, dude, she has lethal. Sorry, because I'm back.
Oh, hello everyone. Welcome back.
Why wouldn't you?
So I got a few things I want to talk about today. First of all,
I did it.
I am so tired of using the exact same 5 items in DBD as a survivor. Why is it that every single chapter we get a new killer with a unique power and sometimes a unique map, but it's the exact same gameplay for survivors? We use flashlights, toolboxes, maps, keys, and medkits. And that's it. Sometimes you get a flashbang or a firecracker if you're playing during an event, but that's basically a perk already, so, like, what the fuck. Also, real quick, I feel like I need to point this out. I'm not a furry. Alright, so, how are we gonna fix this? Well, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I got a couple ideas for some new survivor items. Now, honestly, some of the items that I got inspired by were, or the way that I came up with some of these items was thinking about the lore connected to some of the survivor characters. So, like, what if when DBD drops a new chapter with a survivor, the survivor comes with a new item into the game. Either you could only get that item playing as that survivor, which is an incentive to play different survivors, and maybe it's just unique to their blood web. Or you could prestige a survivor, unlock that item in other people's blood webs. But the item in question would be tied to the character's lore. Now, an example of this is a Polaroid camera, right? So Zarina, one of my one of my survivor mains, she is a photographer. So what if she had a Polaroid camera in her blood web that worked very similar to how a flashlight or firecracker would work, except it's a one-time, you pull it up, you click, you get a photo of the killer, like it just prints out a little thing or whatever, and that counts as a blind. But you have to time it differently than how you would a flashlight, and maybe it's a lot closer range, but maybe not as close as a flashbang. Secondly, a more general item, what about lockpicks, you know? So what if we actually have to interact with doors a little bit more? Maybe it allows you to open chests slightly, or opens up a new spot to a specific hiding spot. Like in the Midwich map, there used to be an area that the killer would have to break a wall, and it would unlock a staircase upwards, and they'd have to break another wall. So what if it worked kind of similar to that? Survivors could unlock a door like that, get a little back door up to a different area. All right, a third item I was thinking about was, like, what about a portable radio? You know, something that could just spawn in on the map. Maybe you could go find it, pick up with it, turn it on, and it creates a noise distraction for the killer. So they, like a false audio cue, like a generator popping or something, you know? Just something that would distract the killer slightly, but if they are paying attention, they know what it is, so they wouldn't deal with it. You could place it, it could be a one-time use or just shortly timed item. Fourth item I was thinking about is a cursed candle. DBD kind of introduced this for the lights out game mode. So you would carry the candle to a generator and place it on top, and it would hide your aura or whatever. So what if we expanded on this a little bit? So, like, what if you're holding the candle and you're lighting the candle and walking around, it cancels the killer's aura reading abilities. So if they have a perk that would show you your location, if you're carrying the candlestick, then it wouldn't go off. So you could just counter their aura perks. Or maybe it disables a hex around you, but only while you're holding it. So a way to balance this would have it be consuming itself on you, so you have a certain amount of time that you could actually light it. And it may have a visual tell around you, like maybe just the lighting around, like the area around you, like there's a bubble around you and the lighting's a little different, and so the killer could, if they're paying attention, kind of like how they can track when crows fly off, if they're really paying attention, they could see a difference in lighting, or they could add an effect kind of like when you see gas moving around. The fifth item I was thinking about would be, what if there was like a clothing decoy or a dummy decoy? So like on the newly, I say newly, but it's not super new anymore, but the revamped Shelter Woods map that now has a bunch of mannequins all around that came with the Skull Merchant. Don't click off, I know that was gross. I'm sorry I even brought her up. But what if you could just, you know, kind of like Distortion or the Pebble perk, where you would have to stay in the killer's aura radius and then terror radius and then throw the pebble to make stuff go off? What if you could just, you know, drop off clothing somewhere, or set up a dummy, and that would create scratch marks or something. I don't know, this one kind of sucks. Look, I'm trying to get really creative here. All right, item number 6 I was thinking about, this one's a little bit better. It's a cam recorder. So what if, and this is kind of inspired by like, you know, the Blair Witch movies and stuff where they're always coming around those cameras and filming the whole time. So what if this cam recorder worked by whenever you hold it or you turn it on, you're looking at it, it'll show you the killer's aura, not from right now, but from earlier. So like 3 seconds prior, you would see where the killer was 3 seconds ago. Kind of like a giant aura reading key, but it doesn't sync up with what's happening right now. You know? You can balance this by giving it a really long cooldown, or maybe you can only use it when you're in a locker or hiding and not in the killer's terror radius. Alright, item number 7. This one really intrigues me. So it's an EMF detector. I kind of got this watching Ghostbusters and Paranormal Activity. So imagine you're carrying around an EMF detector and it gives you a ping warning when the killer is getting closer to you, regardless of the perks they're using. So if you're going against a really silent killer like Ghostface, you could just be holding the EMF detector. And obviously this would work better depending on what killer you're going against. So that's kind of the balance in it. And as long as you're holding it, maybe you can't run while you're holding it, but it'll actually start lighting up depending on how close the killer is to you. And then you can give this a set number of charges, kind of like how a map would work. Item number 8. This one is less to do with like a specific survivor and maybe more of an environmental item. A noise trap. Some kind of bottle that you could get or a toy. You could drop it, smash it, break it, you know, leave a bunch of glass on the floor, whatever. And if the killer walks over it, it'll make a loud noise notification letting survivors know, oh, they're walking over where I placed that thing. So like if you're on an indoor map and you're trying to work on a generator, you could layer one of the entryways with the broken glass, and if you hear the killer step on it, they would get slowed down for like half a second, you know, just very minimally, but it would make noise enough for the survivor to hear it. And this is kind of balanced because the survivor must actually set it up. So it would kind of be like how Trapper has to go and place traps everywhere, but instead of actually, you know, trapping the killer, it would just give the survivor a hint that they're nearby. Now, one item I was thinking about, it's kind of similar to how maps work, because if you have a certain add-on with the map, you can place a marker on the ground, and it looks like a heavenly beam in the sky, and it just shows survivors, other survivors, the marker that you've placed. But it's not very useful. I've never actually used it in a game when I'm not talking to someone, or if I encounter it, I don't know what's going on. It's very confusing, especially for new players. So what if there was kind of a different item, maybe an add-on for the map, or just something differently entirely, that allows survivors to actually mark totems in chests or generators for other survivors. That way you could actually, you know, if I find a hex totem but I can't pop it because I'm being chased, or it's a pentimento totem and it doesn't belong to me, then I could mark it so other survivors can see it from across the map and go, oh, that's where Ruin is. That's where my pentatotem is. That's where my plaything totem is. Item number 10. This is less of an item and more of just, I think, something that DBD needs. Environmental interactions. So instead of pre-choosing, you know, I want a battery for my flashlight before I go into this match, or I want a really long distance lens so I can get snipes with my flashlight. What if you actually had to go, you know, open a drawer and pick up a battery that you found, and then you can put it in your flashlight, and you can swap them out in the middle of the game. This is kind of inspired because I was playing the Evil Dead game, where you actually have to go around, you kill a bunch of guys with that one. That one's much more shooty style. You have guns, and you have to go find ammo and different weapons and stuff. But I like the idea of looting a little bit, you know? It gives you something to do. And it just makes the game fun. Alright, now for the big item. What if there was... And this could also technically be a perk, honestly. This is something that the behavior has already addressed and implemented in 2v8, but it is not in the base game for whatever reason. A pallet repair kit. Imagine a survivor is actually able to fix a broken pallet. But you have to balance this, obviously. If this is an item, then you could only use it one time. And at max, you could have 4 survivors running it, so let's say they pick up God Pallet 4 times. That's not going to be fun for anyone. You don't want to run Shaq any more times than you have to. So if a pallet's been repaired, then it's broken again. It could not be repaired again. That would be the best way to balance this, but still add the option of survivors being able to fix very special pallets. The last item I have, and this one I didn't actually come up with. I saw this in a comment for YouTube when I was just scrolling through looking for different ideas and stuff. This person suggested a sound dampening cloth. So imagine you could get like a tablecloth or one of those tarps that are covering cars, and you could just, like in the Autohaven map, you could just pull it off that and place it on top of a window. That way, when you fast vault the window, it wouldn't be loud. So it would just make it's kind of like a quick and quiet, but you could place it for everyone. And maybe if you vault it a couple times, it rips the cloth and it's no longer usable. And maybe you can pick it up and move it. Or you could balance it by making it unable to be moved once you place it. I don't know, these are just a couple of my ideas. Let me know what you guys think. Comment below if there are any other ideas that you think would be great items for Survivor gameplay to help spice it up. And what do you think about when Behavior adds new chapters, adding items that are tied to the character's lore? Another one that I tried to think about how I would implement would be Yui, because she's a biker. She would have keys and a motorcycle, but vehicles don't really fit into this game, so I kind of got lost with that. So what do you guys think? What would fit with Yui? What would fit from Steve and Nancy from Stranger Things? Lara Croft, are there any items from those games that she would be able to use? I don't know. Let me know what you think.